the truth often hides in plain sight. In Nithari village, a small settlement in Noida, this truth was a monster. Between 2005 and 2006, children started to disappear. One day they were playing, the next, they were gone. These were the children of maids, laborers, and rickshaw pullers, their absence at first barely registered beyond their own desperate families. The disappearances mounted. A chilling pattern emerged. Young girls mostly, sometimes a young boy. Their faces, printed on missing posters, became a haunting gallery of stolen innocence. Parents, frantic with worry, knocked on the doors of the local police. They begged for help, for answers, but their pleas often fell on deaf ears. The official narrative was dismissive. The children had run away, they were told. For over a year, this nightmare unfolded in slow motion. The families, poor and marginalized, battled an invisible predator and an indifferent system. They organized small protests. They pooled their meager resources for wider searches. The whispers in the village grew louder, darker. Rumors of unspeakable things began to circulate. The names of the missing became a grim roll call: Pinky, Payal, Rakshna, and so many others. The dam of denial finally broke on a cold December day in 2006. December 29th, the focus shifted to a specific address, D5, Sector 31, Nithari, the house of Moninder Singh Pandher, a businessman. Behind this seemingly ordinary bungalow, a gruesome discovery was made. Local residents, driven by desperation and a persistent stench, had pointed towards a nearby drain. What police unearthed there was beyond anyone's darkest imagination. Skulls, bones, fragments of human bodies, blood-soaked clothes. Investigators pulled out more than 19 body parts from the filthy drain and the surrounding land. The missing children of Nithari had not simply vanished. They had met a brutal, terrifying end, just meters away from where their families mourned and searched. The news spread like wildfire, sending shock waves of revulsion and anger across the nation. In the heart of this horror stood two figures: Moninder Singh Pandher, the owner of the house, and his domestic servant Surinder Koli. Koli was arrested, and then he began to talk. His confession was a descent into the abyss. The immediate aftermath of the discovery saw both Moninder Singh Pandher and Surinder Koli implicated. Koli, the servant, had confessed to the mechanics of the crimes, the luring, the killing, the grotesque aftermath. His detailed accounts formed the backbone of the initial prosecution. He seemed to be the primary perpetrator, the hands that committed the unspeakable acts. However, the shadow of Moninder Singh Pandher, the wealthy businessman who owned the house, loomed large. Could such atrocities have occurred repeatedly within his residence without his knowledge or complicity? Many found this hard to believe. Pandher maintained his innocence, claiming he was often away on business and unaware of Koli's activities. Yet the sheer scale and duration of the killings raised profound suspicions. Was Koli a lone wolf, or was he an instrument, perhaps protected or even directed by his employer? The Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, took over the case in January 2007. They registered 16 cases against Koli and Pandher, charging them with rape and murder. The investigation, however, soon came under intense scrutiny. Critics pointed out that the probe seemed to fixate on Koli's confessions, potentially overlooking other angles. The police's initial response, or lack thereof, also came under heavy fire. For months they had dismissed the anguished pleas of parents. This negligence was seen by many as a symptom of a deeper Malaise-class bias and corruption. The victims were poor, their families lacked influence. Would the response have been different if the children of the elite had vanished? The investigation's flaws and the earlier police inaction became integral parts of the Nithari tragedy. The legal battle that followed was long and arduous. Surinder Koli faced multiple trials for the individual murders. Case by case, verdicts were delivered. He was convicted in numerous instances, the evidence often resting heavily on his confessions and the discovery of remains. The death penalty was handed down repeatedly, more than 10 times in total. For a period, it seemed that justice, however grim, was being served. Koli was painted as the face of the Nithari evil. Moninder Singh Pandher's legal journey was more convoluted. He was initially convicted and sentenced to death in some cases alongside Koli. The prosecution argued his complicity, his presence in the house during some of the crimes, and the sheer improbability of his ignorance. However, his convictions were often challenged, and the evidence against him was deemed less direct than that against Koli. Then, in October 2023, the narrative took a shocking turn. The Allahabad High Court acquitted both Moninder Singh Pandher and Surinder Koli in several of the cases for which they had been convicted and sentenced to death. Pandher was acquitted in 2 key cases, leading to his release from prison. Koli was acquitted in 12 cases. The primary reason cited by the court was a botched-up investigation. Basic norms of evidence collection were violated, rendering the convictions unsafe. This development sent ripples of disbelief and dismay, especially among the victims' families. The High Court's ruling highlighted critical flaws in how the case was handled from the outset. The Nithari killings left an indelible scar on the psyche of India. It was more than just a series of brutal murders, it was a horrifying exposé of systemic rot. The case laid bare the chilling indifference of authorities towards the poor and marginalized. It highlighted how easily the cries of the powerless can be ignored, how missing children from impoverished backgrounds can become mere statistics, until the horror becomes too big to conceal. The initial police negligence, the alleged corruption, and the class bias that seemed to delay and derail a proper investigation became as much a part of the Nithari story as the crimes themselves. For the families of the victims, the acquittals in 2023 were a devastating blow, reopening wounds that had never truly healed. Their long and painful quest for justice seemed to have hit a formidable wall. The years of court appearances, the agony of reliving their trauma, all felt undermined. The system they had placed their faith in, however reluctantly, appeared to have failed them yet again. The acquittals, based on investigative failures, did not necessarily mean innocence, but they did mean the state had failed to prove guilt to the satisfaction of the higher court. This left the families in a torturous limbo, with unanswered questions and a sense of profound injustice. The saga of Nithari continues to resonate, serving as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary life. It has prompted discussions about police reforms, the rights of victims, and the need for more sensitive and thorough investigative processes, especially in cases involving vulnerable populations. The case also highlighted the sensationalism that can surround such horrific crimes, sometimes obscuring the deeper systemic issues at play. The story has been told and retold, even inspiring cinematic adaptations, each attempt grappling with the enormity of the evil and the societal failings it exposed. The fight for what the families perceive as complete justice is not over. The wheels of the legal system continue to turn, albeit slowly. Following the Allahabad High Court's acquittals of Surinder Koli, appeals were filed. The matter reached the Supreme Court, with pleas challenging these acquittals being heard in early 2025. The final chapter of the Nithari killings is yet to be written. The unhealing wound remains, a testament to the children lost, the families shattered, and the haunting, elusive search for a truth that can bring not just closure, but also meaningful change to prevent such nightmares from recurring.